Thank you for joining me for this lecture on Chinese spiritual beliefs. I love this quote. I think it does a great job of wrapping up the general principle of what we'll be talking about in this lecture. The idea that all things work toward a condition of balance. So you've probably seen this symbol before. It's the Yin Yang, and it's the symbol of non-dualism. So it probably represents the main difference between Western and Eastern thought, very generally speaking. So in Western thought, we typically approach things as a dualism, meaning that there are ways of looking at two sides of things. We like to compare one against the other, for instance, if there's light versus dark. But we can see in the yin yang that this idea of non-dualism, that there is darkness within the light and there is light within the darkness, because it's all working together towards a kind of a balance, a dynamic balance. So this image I chose because it contains various combinations of lines that make up the I Ching hexagrams, which we're going to be talking about in this lecture. It also shows the elemental connections and the chakra connections. The I Ching, or the Book of Changes, is an ancient text, which I think many Western thinkers might think of as a book of divination, of looking to see what your horoscope is. But that's not how the Book of Changes works. So if we go back to that idea that there is a balance that we're trying to achieve with the cosmos, then the Book of Changes tells us, like, given whatever challenge we're facing in our lives, we need to start focusing on a particular change in order to get more in balance with that. Because nothing is random. The cosmos is pervaded by a greater logic and order, and the challenge lies in conducting one's affairs in accordance with the transformation of the cosmos. So the I Ching will become a key text of Confucian study. And in the lecture area, I will put this link for an online I Ching generator, which I think is pretty fun. And you can get an idea of how it works and the kind of language that you'll see once you have thrown your I Ching and get your hexagram. Essentially, when you throw the coins, you're creating what is either a solid line or a broken line, and those stack up as you throw the coins to create one of 64 hexagrams, which is then where you read your message of how to modify your perspective or focus. Happy Year of the Ox. This is a quick reminder, if you don't already know, where you sit in the Chinese zodiac. It's based on the year that you're born. And I will also post a link in the lecture area for this Chinese horoscope for this year, which is the metal ox. The Dao De Jing is one of the shortest and most complicated or mysterious texts that I've ever read. I can read it over and over and over again. It's written by Lao Tzu, which translates as the old master, and he's often shown like being a particular person riding around on an ox, sharing his wisdom. But as his name implies, it's a very generic old master, and it's basically a compilation of wisdom teachings over many, 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 many years. So it wasn't written by an actual single person. Fun fact. After the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita, the Dao De Jing is the most translated book in the world. And here's a quote from it. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. So you can see how, this is 4 short lines, and you can see how you can spend a lifetime trying to decipher the full meaning of that. It's very important that we understand the idea of qi. It's the unifying principle in all nature, the interchangeability of energy and matter. A principle the Chinese call qi. It's part of acupuncture, tai chi, qigong, the chakra system, and feng shui. This is an image of the Wu Wei. which translates as effortless action. And we can see in those two seemingly completely contrasting ideas put together as one thing that it's the embodiment of Taoist thought, of this holding together of things which we might normally think of as being dual, right? Separate, effortless action, and bringing them together so in a non-dual way that they work together. The Wu Wei is understood only by those who live in total simplicity and have the spiritual desire to transcend the material world. Generally speaking, in the Chinese spiritual cosmology, you have gods, you have ancestors, and then you have ghosts, which are neglected ancestors. And that's why you'll see these ancestor shrines um, of, of all over the place, I guess is fair to say, because they contain all the things needed to keep ancestors well fed, taken care of, so that they don't become ghosts and haunt you. I have to admit, I'm a little bit fascinated by contemporary ancestor offerings. This is a Chinese New Year offering at a Taoist shrine in Singapore. And like you can see the little gated wall in front of this mansion. And then we've got this luxurious Mercedes Benz. We've even got two people driving it around. You can find almost anything in paper, refrigerators, Rolex watches. I think it's really fascinating to see the ways in which the ancestor offerings have been updated over the years. So, in speaking of the Confucian Analects, Simon Leys, who's a religious scholar, claims no other book in the entire history of the world has exerted a greater influence on a larger number of people over a longer period of time. So, the Analects really lay out the ways that people are supposed to live in more of a socio-political way in terms of how to keep the societal order. The main virtues of Confucianism are Li, which is propriety in the conduct of the rites of ancestor worship. Ren, benevolent compassion. It combines the characters of person and Tu. De, which is virtue and the power of moral example. Wen, the resulting culture. And Yi, the idea of duty. So I want to leave you with a few quotes from the Analects as we move on to the rest of the week. I hope you are able to dig a little more deeply into some of the amazing artifacts from this culture. So the Analects reflect Confucius's dream of an ideal society of hardworking, loyal people governed by wise, benevolent, and morally upright officials, a government based on moral principles that would be reflected in the behavior of its populace. The master said, "If the people be led by laws and uniformity sought to be given them by punishments, they will try to avoid the punishment, but have no sense of shame." The master said, "When we see men of worth, we should think of equaling them. When we see men of contrary character, we should turn inwards and examine ourselves."